Hi, everyone, and welcome to the final segment for 2020 of Mish's Market Minute. I am your host, Mish Schneider. And once again, I'd like to thank all the people at StockCharts TV for making this such a fun year talking to you week after week. Another busy schedule on tap, so let's get right to it. As you know, I like to do themes, and I find that the themes have been really helpful. I've done everything from country themes to commodity themes to energy themes to electric themes, et cetera, et cetera. And today we're going to do fast and fast casual food as a theme because it looks like something that could be very interesting for 2021, really because so much of the food, but because of the technology that is being developed to make your experience getting the food much better. So basically what a lot of these restaurants are doing is they're reinventing the whole idea of the brick and mortar experience. Some of the technology that's coming out besides the curbside pickup and the drive-through is all about the app. How do we make the app ordering better? So they'll have predictions of when your order is ready and arrival times. They're actually doing personalization. Data personalization, by the way, is another huge theme for 2021 globally, as a matter of fact. But right now, for talking about restaurants, they'll be able to automate your ordering, your payments. They're even working on technology now that recognizes your license plate so that when they know you're close to the restaurant, they can actually start prepping your order, and then you can go through an express lane to be able to pick up your food. So the symbols, I did a lot of research and I went through a lot of stocks. And so I came up with these as the main ones that we're going to go through. I'm not going to tell you the names of the companies, but I always like for you to have it in case you want to go back and refer. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to start with Wendy's, and Wendy's is actually doing incredible amount of pioneer work when it comes to some of this app stuff that I just mentioned to you. And when you look at the chart, of course, we're going to look at all three things: the price, the phase, the real motion indicator, and then the leadership. So right now, as you can see with Wendy's, we've had, if you look back here the last year, I mean, you want to talk about almost a perfect extended head and shoulders bottom. This is it, which of course means that it has to take out the neckline. But in the meanwhile, what we see here is, here's the high that we've had over the last year. We did take it out briefly here and then came back down. And as I'm talking to you on a Wednesday, December 16th, we're having an inside day sitting right on the 50-day moving average. So that tells me now that if this actually confirms back into a bullish phase, it's not the strongest bullish phase I ever saw because the slope on the 50-day moving average isn't exactly up. But nonetheless, it's certainly something to keep an eye on. But what you really want to see here as we go down to the real motion is that is still under the 50. So we're not seeing not only a divergence in terms of this being over the 50 while the price is waiting to confirm, we're seeing it kind of in line. So the momentum, but nonetheless, this could be something very, very exciting as we're going into 2021. I would certainly put this on my radar. And at this point now, I most likely would be looking for that classic high point again to be taken out, or really we're talking about over 2350. That's not even that far away. And then you'd be able to use different choices of risks depending on how long you want to hold it, either under 2130. You could use wherever the 10-day moving average is at around 22, or you can use the low of the day. It clears the 50-day moving average. But watch the momentum. In terms of the leadership, it's just slightly now outperforming the SPY. But I like it, and I definitely want to keep my eye on it, because if this sideways action after the big nadir down in February turns out to break out, we can see a tremendous move higher in Wendy's. The next is the Darden restaurants. They have several restaurants under their venue. This one is a little bit different in that we did have the Golden Cross here, and it's really always nice to be able to get into these things while they are actually retracing to a major moving average, the reason being, of course, risk. And then again here, when it broke down under the 50 and then came back through. And if you look down here at the real motion indicator, it actually was showing no divergence, but it was showing it holding the 50. Then you had the big spike in momentum. And since then, we've really basically been going sideways. So today, Wednesday's high here is at 118.20, and it's trading a little bit lower than that now. What I'd like to see, and by the way, it's just slightly in par, a little bit outperforming the benchmark. What I'd really like to see now is this to hold around this 114, 115 level to control risk. And if it does, again, I'd be looking at this going into next year. That would be one thing. If it doesn't, then I would love to see a retracement back down to the 50. But if it can get back through all these levels, and you see this sideways action that starts with this bar here at 113.19, 93 to one over this day here, which is 150.90, 150.68. Actually, let me check that high again. That high, yeah, about 114. We're kind of getting through that. So let's call really that 113 to 116 the pivotal area right now. And if we can get the close, maybe a second day close over this, then I think you have an opportunity maybe to get in to see if we can match up to these highs up here at 126. But overall, this too, based on the momentum, looks pretty darn good. Of course, McDonald's is also doing a lot with technology, and the McDonald's stock actually went under the 50-day moving average. And you can see on the day I'm talking to you, it actually tested the 50-day moving average and retreated. And this is a negative slope on this. So this tells me now that even if it breaks it, it's a weak return to a bullish phase. Why am I saying that? Let's go down a momentum right here. Look at the momentum. While this touched the 50, the real motion indicator hasn't gotten through the 50 right here. So really what we want to see now with McDonald's, before we get too excited about getting involved in this stock, would be, first of all, a break in the real motion over 50, number one. And number two, we'd like to see a price confirmation with a neutralizing of the slope over the 50 as well. And then finally, we'd like to see this start at least in line with the SPY as far as the leadership, or actually retaking the leadership. So this is another one that could definitely be a great one for 2021 and definitely worth keeping your eye on right now. The next one here is actually one of my favorites. And this is the Restaurant Brands International. What I like in the word in here is international. One of the things that I'm doing, I'm preparing to speak at the Bogu Financial Forum in China as not only something that's virtual, obviously this year, but also I'm the first woman trader that's ever been invited to speak. So that's quite an honor. As a result, I've been doing a lot of research in China, and a lot of this type of fast food app dining experience is a growing trend in China too. So that's what interests me about this particular company. Now, as far as the technicals, what I like is if we take a line, as you can see my horizontal line here that goes across, it matches up completely with the 10-day moving average that we're seeing right here at this level right here. See that about 60. So at around 60.50 right now, you've got some support, and it's starting to move away, and there's the momentum, and it's also outperforming. So with this one, the opportunity could be sooner rather than later, and maybe some kind of dip closer to around 60 would be better for controlling risk. If not, if you were to get involved after you listen to this video, because it's still trading up over that 62 level, then I would probably say to control your risk, you have a couple of choices. You can look at it longer term against the 50, or you can look at it against that 10-day moving average. But this one is really, really interesting to me. BLMN is another one that looks kind of interesting, Blooming Brands. And again, look at this formation here over the last couple of months since September, which we've now taken out. So some of these were actually really interesting a couple of weeks ago, and now they're starting to clear that area. But that's okay, because if they're good, this obviously you can see has more upside, and it's not an expensive stock. So again, really a matter of risk. To me, this whole breakout area here, let's call this high right now 18. 18 really needs to hold. If 18 breaks, I would look for the opportunity to buy it closer to the 50-day moving average. If 18 holds, then you can use that as a risk. And if this continues to move up, then I think maybe you can see a move up to 20, 22, maybe even higher than that. The next one is CBRL. And this one is the Cracker Barrel. I've never in my life been inside of a Cracker Barrel, I can tell you that. I'm vegan, so Cracker Barrel to me means cheese, but I'm sure it's really super popular. So what I thought was interesting, though, was the way the stock looked, because you've gotten higher highs here, and then it keeps selling off. But what you have is a nice upward slope momentum on the underlying 50-day moving average, and that comes in right now at 128.31. So it looks to me like this could be a little bit of a bear flag. You see my flagpole here and then the pennant going up. So that tells me that we might see a correction. We could see a correction even as much as down to around here. This would be an opportunity, I think, to be looking at this on a correction. The momentum, though, is really not too bad. You could see the sitting here right at the Bollinger Band. So if it clears that Bollinger Band here or that dotted line, then maybe also if the way this would negate the potential bear flag, I think would be a close really basically over this high right here, which would be 140. So if it can't get through 140, look for it to move down closer to 128. And if it breaks down under to 128, then I would look for a move down closer to around 121. This one coming up now is Domino's. This is also an interesting looking chart because look what's happening. This had a big move up, gap lower. I'm guessing that's probably earnings. And now it's sitting here between the 50 and the 200. So this one, this is where I really like to confer to my real motion indicators, which are also going down. So I wouldn't touch this yet, but this could be one that you could watch going into 2021, because if it does hold the 200, if the slope starts to neutralize on the 50, or better yet, we start to see some kind of a divergence in the real motion indicator that it clears the 50, then Domino's, which I know is doing a lot of apps from watching football, I see the commercials for it all the time, that also could be an interesting play. So that's another one to keep on the radar. And this is Jack in the Box, another place I have never in my life been to, but nonetheless, it's very close right here to the 50-day moving average, coming in at 86.61. And the two has been doing lots of nice sideways consolidation. So you kind of have a range here, and we've broken from that range. We're also clear on the 50 here on the real motion indicator. But again, we're in December. We're almost the end of the year. Would I be collecting these stocks heavily as we're getting close to the holiday? Probably not. But would I be looking for these in January to see how they set up, particularly whether the momentum starts get going or whether this starts outperforming the benchmark? Yeah, because this also has one of these giant head and shoulders bottoms going sideways here on this neckline for over the entire year. And I say year, I mean going back to 2019 as well. Next is Cake. Cake was a hot stock a few years ago. And now, of course, with the pandemic has dropped and now is trying to recover like everything else. This has a better momentum than what we just saw with Jack in the Box. And I have, by the way, been in a cheesecake factory. What surprised me about it was how good the menu was for the food. Yeah, you could get a lot of cake, but actually as a vegan, I was able to order food and they worked with me. There's a really nice one in Albuquerque. So consumer instinct kind of set in here, and also when I saw it come up on the list. Now they too, of course, are trying to increase the service to be more conduit to obviously our new world. But we've got our 50-day moving average here sloping up at 34. If we can get anywhere close to these bases here at 35, that could be interesting. If you wanted to look at it on more of a strength, I'd like to see this hold the momentum, but if it clears back over 40, that could be interesting. And this was trading much higher at a point. The only thing, again, that concerns me at this point in time is that it's not showing any leadership. The next one, this is I never heard of this company, BJRI Holdings, but it came up in my search for restaurants and bars. And this one is actually more of a momentum type trade as opposed to the others that I've just shown you, in that if you look here, you can see that this is already broken out and now is heading right into the resistance. Again, take your eye from the point of the high that you're looking at in most recent price action and go to the left and you'll see the high right here. So we're actually right into a little bit resistance here, up at these highs or up at around 126. So right now with the Wednesday action is an inside day on the 10. So that means that if you're like to be a more active trader and you want to do something before the holidays and this breaks out over 126, you can use a super tight risk to right under that 10-day moving average, which comes in under the low actually of this day, which is the day I'm talking to you, or figure around 120. And I'm imagining this must have a big average range because look at the price. Also look at the momentum. So even though this is pausing here with an inside day, the momentum is still strong and it is showing some leadership, not tremendous leadership, but it's showing. So this one's interesting too. The next one, this is BJ's restaurant. I've seen these around. Again, I've never personally been in one, but the interesting thing here is that this, and I'm not going to draw a trend line for you because I'm always afraid that if I leave what I'm doing here with my cursor, I'll never get back to it. But nonetheless, here, if you could imagine a flag, it would connect this high, and this high. You would actually have a beautiful trend line there, and you could actually make it a wedge by connecting this low, and this low. When you have that kind of what we call a descending channel or wedge, when it breaks out, it's interesting. What's nice about this too is that you've got your 50-day moving average that it's cleared on the day I'm talking to you, which means we need a second close. And you also have a slope that's kind of neutral. And then also you could see here, we're breaking it on the real motion, although it's not wow on terms of the momentum, it's not bad. And I guess still underperforming against the benchmark. So I would draw this line in and it looks like just if I just rough it out, that if it breaks out over, let's call it 35.10, maybe now you can have a good opportunity to get into this one early. And that would be with a risk maybe under 32. So you're talking about a $3 risk. It's traded up at 40. So just based on the recent action, it could be a good one risk reward. And so I would write this down as a more intermediate term trade as opposed to wait for next year. This is Taco Bell. And well, actually Del Taco restaurants, I'm assuming that Taco Bell must be part of it, although I thought Taco Bell was part of Yum, which I decided not to show you because it was too extended. But nonetheless, whatever this is, what's interesting to me is we're not really seeing a good divergence yet, in that this is actually sitting close to the 50-day moving average while this is clearing it. But what I liked is that it's starting to show a little bit of leadership here. And even though it opened up strong and is now coming off, it's also a cheap stock, by the way. This 10-day moving average that comes in around 9, excuse me, would be one area to look at to hold. The other would be here at around 860. And you can see that this, if we go back in time a little bit, this traded up all the way up to 1350 back in the summer, last summer, not 2019 summer. So this is another interesting one to be keeping your eye on as well. And then if we move on from there, we've got DIN. This is Dine Brands Global, another global stock. So when I see the word global, I get like super interested. And right now you can see that the momentum is pretty strong, no divergence, totally in line with what the stock price is doing, which is correcting. You also, kind of like what I just showed you with Taco, you have this little flag forming here. If you take this high and this high and this high, and then again with a wedge at the bottom, if you take this low, you have not perfect like the other one we saw, but not bad over an inclining slope on a 50. So that tells me that this clears the 10-day moving average at 67.71 and holds it. You could have an opportunity there as well as a more active trade, considering the momentum is good and the leadership has gone down, but not too bad. Okay, a few more. FRGI. This one also has already made sort of a move, but what I liked is when I look at these, I like to look back in time. So if we go all the way back here, before this stock collapsed in June, July of 2019, look at the high there compared to the high here, which was at 1346, compared to the high here, which is a 1367. So ballpark there. Now we're trading below it. So I think a couple of things is, one is if it takes out that like 1350 level, that could be very interesting for more upside. By the way, this is Fiesta Restaurant Group. And I tried to do a mixture of stuff. The momentum down here is holding on the Bollinger Band, and it's sitting really on par performance. But if we can get through that level, then you can use either the recent low here of 12 or the 10-day moving average as a risk point. So that one's not too bad either. And we see I'm giving you a mixture of stock prices from a $9 stock to a $122 stock. Now the next one is Wing. I added this one, interestingly enough, because I thought that not only is it this whole formation right here, looks another like sort of mini Head and Shoulders bottom, which hasn't taken out yet, by the way, speaking of an expensive stock. But I also thought that the momentum is not catching up to the price, which tells me that if this starts to peter out, let's say the market actually makes a correction. I know, remember those days when the market actually corrected? This might be one that would be more of a short opportunity, and as a high price stock, it's not a bad short. But I would not saying to short it now. I'm just saying with the momentum not really wowing me here and the price extended, if this came off and the momentum went negative under the 50 and the price performance started to fail, this would be maybe a short opportunity. But in the meanwhile, right now, it looks to me like if it can get through this 138.62 level area, let's call it an even 140, 138 to 140, then this could have more upside too. Next, we have KRUS. And I added this one because, again, I saw in Japan that a lot of the traditional sushi restaurants, the ones that have been around, some of them for many years, are going out of business. And instead, fast food sushi is becoming all the rage in Japan. So I found this stock as KRUS Sushi, and I thought this is kind of a similar situation, only obviously this is the United States. And since a lot of people like sushi, that interests me. When I looked at the actual price, look, we had the golden cross here, and then we had a nice retracement. I always like to be looking at those retracements. Of course, I wasn't looking at the stock at the time, but training your eye to look for that too. And now here we are underneath the 10. So a move, let's say, over this 10-day moving average could be an interesting opportunity with a kind of a tight risk to under this low right here at 16.50. So you're really talking about maybe $1.50, $1.75, max $2 to look at a risk to see if this can go back to where this was. If you go back here at the end of 2019, this was trading all the way up at $27, $28. So that's not a bad do too. Real motion sitting on the Bollinger Band, on par in terms of leadership. So this is another one of my interesting plays to watch. Now, the next few, since I have extra time, I'm going to show you, aren't necessarily in the fast food business, but they are so things that I'm watching very carefully right now for setups. So first of all, why didn't I show you CMG? Let me show you why I didn't show you CMG. Look at that. CMG actually had a gap up today, and today being Wednesday, and exploded. What's interesting is if you look at the real momentum, real motion momentum here, it's just now starting to get back over that 50-day moving average. So this was actually in a negative divergence until today. So that's really very interesting right here. So I feel like the risk is so great here, I would never get involved. But obviously Chipotle is like the king with the online ordering and how great they've done. But the couple of others I wanted to show you was, one was KHC. So this is Heinz, Kraft Heinz. So a lot of these food companies, now right now they could have a double-edged sword. They could do well going into 2021 as people are still cooking a lot at home, but they could also get affected if the rising food prices continue. That could hurt their bottom line. But nonetheless, right now, this is dancing on that 10-day moving average, and through 35.50 takes out all this price action with decent momentum and outperforming the SPY. So I thought you should look at that. And then also I thought another one that's way too extended, but interesting to look at to see what could happen with these stocks is Starbucks. Starbucks, my God, you know, you would just think that this thing would have died a while ago, but with expensive coffee, but nonetheless, here it is still rocking and rolling. And the reason why I'm showing you this is when I look to these past levels, like here, by the way, we look at this high right here where my cursor is, that gapped above it. There was your first next buy signal. So a lot of this I show you, yeah, because I think they're good actionable trades. And a lot of this I show you to teach you what good actionable trades look like when they set up in a particular theme. And the last one I'm going to show you is actually interesting stock that somebody just brought to my attention, which is competitive, by the way, to Beyond Meat. And this is TTCF, the tattooed chef. So this now is creating vegan products. You could see, it's a relatively, didn't do anything at all this time and now really started to perk up here in May 2020. You could see it's still under the 50-day moving average in the momentum, and it's sitting right on the 50-day moving average, which is negatively sloped here in price, and it's been outperforming the benchmark. So I would keep my eyes on this. I'm interested in this one. I thought it should retrace down to the 50-day. It did on the day I'm talking to you and popped a little bit, but I'm not in a big rush here because of the momentum. But if we start to see this momentum come back up, and let's say this get through these levels right here, which would really be this high right here, so it doesn't look like a nasty head and shoulders top, or through 20, then I think you have a good risk down to whatever this recent lows be, let's say 1840, to see if this thing can continue up. This is really an interesting company right now. And if it is going to be some kind of competition to Beyond, of course, Beyond is still the kingpin, and I'll show you that right now. This is just going sideways under the 50, momentum also under the 50. I wouldn't touch this stock unless we started to see the momentum happen. I still think Beyond is a good company, but nonetheless, now you have two companies to look at that are dealing with plant-based products. And by the way, you also have a lot of fast food restaurants and casual food dining to look at as well for 2021, and some more near-term moves if you're so inclined. Okay, that's it for me. I want to thank you all for watching the videos week after week, writing your incredibly wonderful comments to me. I appreciate it. Questions I will answer. I hope you all have a very, very happy holiday, a happy and healthy, prosperous new year. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.